Presented by Climate Power Education Fund. Does big oil care about our streets flooding or our home burning? Not according to an ExxonMobil top lobbyist.
Did we aggressively fight against some of the science? Yes. We were looking out for our shareholders.
They care about profits, not people. Learn more at polluters.exposed.
Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Friday, August 13th, 2021. Here are some of your headlines. The Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby saying the Taliban's quick advance in Afghanistan, taking more major cities, isolating the capital, Kabul, is deeply concerning. This as thousands of U.S. troops are being sent back to that country to help evacuate U.S. nationals and Afghans who helped the U.S. during the war. 1,000 more troops will be in the neighborhood on standby. A CDC advisory committee unanimously recommending a third dose of COVID-19 vaccines for people with weakened immune systems to better protect them against the highly contagious and more dangerous Delta variant of the virus. A group of moderate House Democrats telling House Speaker Nancy Pelosi that a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure spending bill must happen before a vote on the Democrats' only larger budget bill. That's the opposite of what the Speaker wants and a number of progressive Democrats. We'll talk about it with a reporter from Politico. And the Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel at the RNC Summer Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, at one point in her speech saying to a huge applause, Democrats cannot take away my right to call myself a mom. I am not a birthing person. I am a mother, and it's the most important job I will ever have. We start with Afghanistan. This reporting from the New York Times. 3 major cities in the western and southern part of the country confirmed on Friday to have fallen to the Taliban as the insurgents' race to take control of the country accelerated. The government's forces appear close to a complete collapse. Some American officials fear the Afghan government will not last another month. And we learned yesterday the Pentagon moving 3,000 Marines and soldiers to Afghanistan, another 4,000 troops to the region, to evacuate most of the American embassy and U.S. citizens in Kabul. Latest today from the Pentagon and Press Secretary John Kirby.
As we've seen the different provincial capitals fall, is the Department of Defense surprised at how quickly it seems that the Afghan National Army has collapsed under Taliban pressure?
We are certainly concerned by the speed with which the Taliban has been moving. As we've said from the very beginning, that this is and it still is, a moment for Afghan national security and defense forces as well as their political leadership. No outcome has to be inevitable here. I'm not going to speculate about surprise. We're obviously watching this just like you're watching this and seeing it happen in real time, and it's deeply concerning. It's, in fact, the deteriorating conditions are a big factor in why the president has approved this mission to help support the reduction of personnel there in Kabul. We're adjusting as best we can given those conditions. And again, this is a moment for the Afghans to unite, the leadership and in the military. No outcome has to be inevitable here.
Just one last. If the Taliban continue across and take Kabul, what happens to the continued support the DoD had been planning to do for the Afghan National Security Forces, such as like the contracted air support or the fuel that DoD was committing to send? Are you all starting to have conversations about at what point does that support have to be cut off to keep it from going into the hands of the Taliban?
We're still supporting the Afghan National Security and Defense Forces. We're still supporting the Afghan government, the elected government in Kabul. And that's what we're going to be focused on doing. It would be easy to speculate about what the future of Afghanistan looks like right now, but I think we want to focus on what we are doing. We are supporting the Afghans in the field where and when we can. We're still working on contract support for over-the-horizon. We're still making sure we have robust over-the-horizon counterterrorism capabilities in the region so that we can't suffer a threat from Afghanistan again. So we're we are focused on the security situation as we see it now and what we've got to do, the missions we've been assigned by the commander-in-chief, and I'll let the political situation play out. That's really not something that we're overly focused on right now.
Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby. The Taliban now controls about half of Afghanistan's 34 provincial capitals and about two-thirds of the country. Several Republican members of the U.S. Congress who served in the U.S. military in Afghanistan stepping up their criticism of the Biden administration's strategy in Afghanistan as the Taliban taking control of much of that country, reportedly committing atrocities against civilians. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas tweeting today, "It's clear President Biden and his Department of Defense have been more concerned with critical race theory and other woke policies than planning on orderly withdrawal from Afghanistan." And Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida tweeting, "It's not too late for the Biden administration to reverse course in Afghanistan. I'm asking President Biden to provide U.S. air support to the Afghan National Security Forces against the Taliban, sanction Pakistan, and fire Ambassador Khalilzad due to his catastrophic diplomatic strategy." Waltz was interviewed on Fox News on Thursday.
One thing that clearly Biden doesn't understand and those around him is the Afghans could care less whether it's 2,000 American troops or 20,000 American troops. What they needed to hear is America's with you and standing with you. And what the Taliban do so masterfully, they'll take two bases, surround them both, overrun them both. One of them, they'll massacre everyone. The other one, they'll let everyone go. They video it and send it to the next group of Army bases and say, you decide. At the end of the day, though, the Americans abandoned you, and you get to pick your fate. And by doing that, they take base after base after base because of the psychology and the psychological warfare of it all.
And they're killing women, enslaving women, women whose hair is exposed, goes on fire, right, and they burn them alive in their wake. Ambassador Khalilzad cut this deal. He yesterday told the Taliban to stop advancing. Do you think that'll be effective?
Yeah, I think, frankly, Ambassador Khalilzad needs to go. He needs to resign. He has clearly been wrong, and this policy that he has pushed has turned out to be the disaster that sadly many of us foretold. But to your point on, well, the Taliban will be nicer this time. These are Islamic extremist thugs. They are closely aligned with al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is going to come roaring in the wake as the Taliban reinstitute Sharia law, brutalizing women, brutalizing minorities, and executing everyone who has worked with the United States of America to stand for freedom. And the Al-Qaeda, Biden's own intelligence community says Al-Qaeda does intend to hit the United States again. Biden needs to reverse course, stop the slaughter, and send back in American air power.
It's Congressman Mike Waltz on Fox News. He served in Afghanistan and is the first Green Beret to be elected to the U.S. Congress. He says in a letter to President Biden that if the Taliban overthrows the Afghan government, there is a risk of Al-Qaeda 2.0 reemerging. Democratic Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado also served in Afghanistan as an Army Ranger. He was interviewed today on MSNBC with Andrea Mitchell.
I think it's nothing short of heartbreaking for so many of us. Veterans that have served in Afghanistan or Iraq, we leave parts of our heart in those places where we fought, serving right alongside Afghan men and women. It's very, very heartbreaking to see what's happening here. And the pace of the advances of the Taliban, I don't think anyone was expecting the pace to be as rapid as it is. So really, the question now is, what are we going to do in the weeks ahead? And are we going to keep our promises and stand by those who stood by us by evacuating them to safety?
Do you think that fellow veterans feel that their sacrifices was for naught? Or is this an acknowledgement of the inevitability that we can't finish the job and we can't keep our commitment to the people of Afghanistan?
Well, Andrew, I think we have to be really, really clear here that there's a huge difference. In fact, we can't even underscore enough how different it is, the individual sacrifice of the individual service members, those men and women, the millions of men and women who stood up after 9/11, raised their right hand, took the oath, and answered the call to service that the country put out. That is honorable, and that is right, and that's very different from the policy discussions that will happen in this town. It's very different from what went right and what went wrong, and we'll have decades to write books and have that discussion and debate. But we should always honor the men and women who stood up and answered the call to service of our nation. And they should all be proud, very proud that they stood up in their country's time of need. And I think it's really important that we illustrate that. It's very different from the policy considerations.
Congressman Jason Crow on MSNBC. Reports are that the staff at the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan ordered to destroy classified and other sensitive materials as the office prepares to reduce its number, and the Taliban may be closing in. Reports in the Washington Post and CNN about this internal memo from embassy leadership telling staff to use incinerators, disintegrators, and burn bins to deal with sensitive material and also destroy agency logos, American flags, or items that could be misused in propaganda efforts. The U.S. not the only country sending military personnel back to Afghanistan to help get citizens and Afghans who helped during the war out safely. The British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace explained on Sky News.
British troops arriving in Afghanistan, what is their role? Is it a rescue mission?
No, we are withdrawing. We made that some months ago clear, and the timetable we're working to is obviously the American announced timetable of September the 11th. There was always going to be a phase where you effectively put in logisticians, air movers, command and control personnel, and a force to protect that force. And that is the appropriate moment is to do that now. So that is approximately 600 extra people will be going in. The first elements will be going in by the end of the week. And their job is to make sure that we can continue to process the Afghan interpreters and the wider community that we have an obligation to help draw down some of those people from the embassy that are going to come out as we reduce that footprint. And then lastly, a group of what we call entitled personnel. Those are people who have British passport holders. There is a theoretical number. Those are people such as security guards who might be working for aid agencies, or indeed just British passport holders that we have an obligation to bring out. That requires
essential Brits are coming home.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
That could be up to 3,000 people.
British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace on Sky News. The United Kingdom also looking into relocating its embassy in the capital city to a more secure location as Taliban forces are closing in. This is Washington Today. Now to the coronavirus, and following the Food and Drug Administration's recommendation in the U.S. Thursday night for a third dose of the Pfizer or Moderna COVID-19 vaccine for certain people with compromised immune systems, today a CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Advisory Committee, voting unanimously for the same authorization. The meeting before the vote and during the vote was virtual. You're going to hear Committee Chair Dr. Grace Lee announce the total. And that's confirmed. You'll hear the voice of the committee executive secretary, Dr. Amanda Cohn, and then some post-vote comments from two committee members.
So I believe we have, I'm calculating correctly, Dr. Cohn, 11 yeses, 0 noes, and the ayes have it, and the recommendation is adopted.
Yes, I have the same thing. The motion passes.
Terrific, thank you. And I will ask if individuals would like to comment about their vote or make any additional, have any additional clarification. So, Dr. Talbot, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated that ACIP and the work group and the CDC have really delineated the idea of a third dose in a series, for a primary series, versus a booster. I think that's incredibly important. I think we're looking at a very specific population in the U.S. that was not able to mount an appropriate immune response to the normal 2 doses. And so this is a very specific population and is not meant for the entire U.S. population. We are all very worried about the Delta variant, but that may be the least of our problems if COVID-19 continues to circulate across the U.S. and the world. And so I think it's incredibly important that we remember that we need to begin sharing more and more vaccines across the world and encouraging those pockets of low vaccination rates to immunize, or the Delta variant may be the least of our concerns. So just as a reminder, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Paling, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, this is Kathy Paling. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, good. So thank you. I do want to express my sincere thanks to everybody at the ACIP, the working group, and the FDA for making this data available so we could have this vote. I voted yes for an additional dose of mRNA vaccine for all children and adults over 12 years of age with moderate and severe immunocompromising conditions to maximize their chance of protection from vaccine. These persons have increased risk of hospitalization, breakthrough disease, and death from COVID-19. In addition, the vaccine effectiveness among immunocompromised is lower than those without immunocompromising conditions. Recent studies demonstrate that 33 to 50% of persons with immunocompromising conditions who did not initially respond did respond with a third dose in the primary series. This vote enables all persons 12 and older to obtain a third dose in a primary care series to increase their protection from the vaccine. It is critical to highlight persons with immunocompromising conditions and their families the importance of wearing masks, maintaining social distance, and avoiding crowded locations indoors, and cocooning by having close contacts vaccinated. It's equally important to share and highlight the importance that all schools create plans so that all children, including those with moderate to severe immunocompromising conditions, can safely attend school. Thank you.
A portion of today's meeting of the CDC's ACIP, that is the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. The CDC estimates about 2.7% of U.S. adults are immunocompromised, about 7 million people, and some of the conditions that fall under that category, those who have had organ transplants or stem cell transplants, or have advanced or untreated HIV infection or certain chronic diseases. A CNN analysis of federal health data on COVID-19 finds 8 states have COVID-19 patients that account for at least 15% of their overall hospitalizations. Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nevada, and Texas. Many of those states are also lower than the average in percentage of the population that has been vaccinated. Mississippi, in fact, is last in the nation in that category, and today Governor Tate Reeves, a Republican, urging residents to change that.
The difference between this peak and our last peak is evident by the data. That difference lies within those who are vaccinated versus those who are not. I want to be clear. I've been vaccinated. And if you're watching us on Facebook Live today, you probably got to watch me get vaccinated, thanks to the help of some of Dr. Dobbs' finest employees. My mom's been vaccinated. My dad's been vaccinated. My wife's been vaccinated. My grandmom has been vaccinated. I believe the vaccines are safe. I believe they are effective. And I believe that they are the best tool we have moving forward to beat the virus. I have and will continue to encourage my fellow Mississippians to consult with your doctor about the vaccine. I encourage each and every one of you to ask your doctor questions about how the vaccine applies to their unique situation and to make the best decision possible for themselves and their family. Now, we have seen a rather significant increase in total number of vaccinations over the last several weeks. Just 4 weeks ago, we had about 18,000 shots put in arms. Last week, we had almost 60,000 shots put in arms. And we are on pace this week of having over 70,000 shots in arms. In total, 1.3 million of our fellow Mississippians have been vaccinated, and an additional 400,000-ish Mississippians with some protection from this variant through natural antibodies. We continue to see more and more data, and the data is becoming more and more clear. Those who receive the vaccine are significantly less likely to contract the virus, and for those very few number of breakthrough cases, they are much less likely to spread the virus, and it is highly unlikely that if you have the vaccine that you end up in the hospital or that you end up in an ICU bed. Out of the total number of new COVID-19 cases in Mississippi that we are reporting, approximately 97% of those are found in unvaccinated individuals. Approximately 89% of our current hospitalizations are those who have not been vaccinated. 89% of the hospitalization of those who have not been vaccinated. The sooner individuals take the opportunity to get vaccinated, the more individuals that can get vaccinated, the sooner we can move beyond this peak and beyond this pandemic.
Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves in the capital city, Jackson. Today, Mississippi reported a single-day record of more than 5,000 new COVID cases. Reeves extending a state of emergency order that was to expire this week for another 30 days. In neighboring Louisiana, Governor John Bel Edwards, a Democrat, also reporting over 5,000 new cases of COVID in a day, and also a record number of hospitalizations in his state. Governor Edwards holding his own news conference, speaking directly to those who are skeptical of the vaccine.
And for people who continue to think, well, maybe I should be more concerned about the vaccines than about the virus, I want to share this little tidbit. There's all sorts of data points out there that you can rely upon and that make a compelling case for the safety and efficacy of these vaccines and why being vaccinated is the smart choice for you and your family and your community. But for those people who have decided that they're more concerned about receiving the vaccine than actually contracting the disease, at this point, 2.1 million Louisianans have received at least one shot. In fact, 3.8 million doses have been administered to those 2.1 million Louisianans. There have been exactly 8 severe adverse reactions to the vaccine. By definition, that means a hospitalization or death. None of the 8 resulted in death, not one. But today, and I'm about to get to the numbers, we're going to report 57 deaths. That's just today from COVID-19. So please think about that. And while we're on the numbers, today we're reporting 7,548 new cases of COVID-19. That's one of the highest daily numbers that we've reported at any point in the pandemic. 23% of our current cases are made up of individuals under 18 years old. 23%. Very sadly, as I just mentioned, we're reporting 57 new deaths. The total now is 11,519. We have 2,907 individuals in the hospital with COVID-19. That's the highest we've ever had in any given day.
Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards in Baton Rouge. Yesterday, New Orleans joining the list of cities requiring proof of coronavirus vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test to enter a restaurant, bar, or other indoor venue in the city. That begins on Monday. Also today, the White House announcing nearly $9 billion to help rural health care providers, especially hospitals, struggling to deal with COVID-19. Most of the money coming from the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill signed into law earlier this year, the one known as the American Rescue Plan. Washington Today continues in a minute.
Angie's List is now Angie. Whether you need help with routine maintenance or you're planning your dream renovation, Angie connects you with top local pros who can get the job done right. See reviews, compare quotes, and book hundreds of projects. Plus, when you book and pay through Angie, we'll cover your project up to the full purchase price, plus limited damage protection with our Happiness Guarantee. Check out Angie.com, and for more on the Happiness Guarantee, go to Angie.com/happiness-guarantee.htm.
Welcome back to Washington Today. A few more headlines. The Treasury Department says that households with children receiving their second monthly payment this week of the expanded child tax credit, say it covers 61 million children, and the money sent out $15.4 billion. A federal judge refusing landlords' request to put the Biden administration's new eviction moratorium on hold, but the judge making it clear she thinks it's illegal. The judge says her hands are tied by an appellate ruling the last time courts considered the eviction moratorium in the spring. Alabama landlords challenging the moratorium are likely to appeal. And the Speaker of the New York State Assembly says the impeachment investigation into Governor Andrew Cuomo is being suspended because the investigation into sexual harassment allegations and other conduct in office could likely have resulted in articles of impeachment had he not resigned. And that's the problem. He has resigned. He says the state constitution does not authorize the legislature to impeach and remove an elected official who is no longer in office. From Newsweek, the head of the Republican National Committee took aim at the 2020 presidential election outcome and praised former President Donald Trump during her opening remarks at the RNC's summer meeting in Nashville on Friday. Ronna McDaniel saying, "Every one of us knows we can never let what we saw happen in 2020 happen ever again. Democrats wage war on election transparency, security, and integrity, undermining our elections." McDaniel also in her speech referenced some controversy such as the one this week in which CDC guidance used the words pregnant person to acknowledge that not all people who give birth identify as women. Here's Ronna McDaniel.
I am so proud to be in this fight alongside every single one of you, and I am so optimistic about the next election because I see it. I see the energy and passion of people across our country every day. And I also see something else. Democrats and their radical policies have awakened a sleeping giant, the moms of America. Moms are mobilizing against what Democrats are doing to our kids. We will not let you teach our children that they were born racist or oppressed based on the color of their skin. We will fight for school choice and the best education for our kids. Democrats are the party of limiting opportunity, and we are the party of limitless opportunity. And we know the best path to the American dream comes from a good education and the right to choose the best school for your child. We will not allow Democrats to close our classrooms again or mask up our children again. We will not allow unions to teach our children anything other than that the United States is the greatest nation on earth. And finally, the Democrats cannot take away my right to call myself a mom. I am not a birthing person. I am a mother, and it's the most important job I will ever have. So Joe Biden, Kamala, Nancy, Chuck, big tech censors, liberal media, the Democrat socialists, defund the police, open border party. We have a message for you. The American people love freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of opportunity. We love this country, and despite everything you do, freedom matters and freedom will win. We will take back the House and the Senate in 2022, and we will take back the White House in 2024. States of America. Thank you.
Ronna McDaniel, the chair of the Republican National Committee at the RNC summer meeting in Nashville, Tennessee. More from the Newsweek article about the meeting. Former President Donald Trump isn't expected to attend the meeting, but the RNC crowd broke out into cheers and applause when the former president appeared briefly during a montage video. A story at Politico, a group of 9 moderates threatening to withhold their votes from Democrats' $3.5 trillion budget resolution later this month, endangering Speaker Nancy Pelosi's 2-track plan to push both a massive infrastructure bill and social spending agenda through the House in the coming weeks. That missive, which was made public Friday, quickly escalated tensions across the Democratic caucus, with anxieties already running high about how the tightly divided House will be able to muscle through both President Biden's priorities in short order. That's the start of the article in Politico. We spoke with one of the reporters who wrote it, Sarah Ferris.
So basically, we've been seeing this roller coaster coming down the mountain for a while. We've basically known that these moderate Democrats were going to be staking out this position, and here it is. Basically, what it comes down to is the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, laid out this two-track strategy to approving President Biden's top two priorities, but it requires getting both of those done at the same time. And this group of moderates says, look, we have a Senate-passed package that's ready to go. We don't want to wait any longer, even if it means not guaranteeing the passage of the broader reconciliation bill. So this is a real clash that's been going on behind the scenes in the caucus for a long time. And now that Senate bill has been passed, we're starting to see some of those tensions break out into the open a little bit.
At the same time, there's a group of progressive House Democrats that are telling the Speaker exactly the opposite. You have to pass the larger bill first.
Exactly. They don't love what's in the bipartisan bill. There's a lot of things in there that they say it doesn't go far enough, doesn't have progressive enough priorities. And, of course, they believe that this is one of the last chances to get a huge package of Democratic bills. A lot of folks are worried about losing the House. The Senate majority, of course, is up as well. So for progressives who've been waiting a long time to be able to have a president in power who can achieve these priorities, this is the last chance for them. So they're not ready. They're not willing to risk missing out on things like universal pre-K or child care or the child tax credit. They want to see these enacted. So they're threatening to withhold their votes for the Senate bipartisan deal. And so basically you have these two balances happening at the same time, and it's really complicating the path forward.
Any word from House Speaker Pelosi on how she's going to deal with this?
Pelosi and other Democrats close to her have just reiterated over and over that she will be standing firm on this. They do not believe that there are the votes to pass the Senate bipartisan deal. Now, the moderates who wrote this letter today, they argue that there would be Republican votes to help them pass the Senate bill. But the progressives say there's no way that there's enough Republicans to help pass that bill. Then progressives would be opposing it. So they say there's just not enough Republican votes there to make up for what they would lose on the left. So right now it looks like the Speaker is going to be continuing her course. Of course, this letter does mean that there are not the votes there to move forward on the budget resolution, but Pelosi is masterful at getting people to be a yes on different pieces of legislation. We've seen it many times over the years. Most Democrats I talk to just really expect that Pelosi will figure out ways to get people to vote yes on this budget in a couple of weeks when the House comes back.
Sarah Ferris, Congress reporter for Politico. Read her story at Politico.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the 9 Democrats signing that letter to Speaker Pelosi: Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, Carolyn Bourdeaux of Georgia, Philemon Vela of Texas, Jared Golden from Maine, Henry Cuellar of Texas, Vicente Gonzalez of Texas, Ed Case of Hawaii, Jim Costa of California, and Kurt Schrader from Oregon. The House scheduled to return the week of August 23rd. And as Speaker Pelosi has said, she wants to take up the budget resolution first. House Speaker Pelosi also announcing today that she is extending proxy voting until October 1st in response to the surge in new coronavirus cases driven by the Delta variant. Story in Axios noting despite initial opposition and a lawsuit from House Republicans, remote voting is quickly becoming the norm. Some members have even pressured Pelosi to make the arrangement permanent. On Wall Street today, the Dow was up 15, NASDAQ up 6, S&P up 7. Consumer confidence falling in the first half of August, according to the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. The August drop was the index's third largest single monthly decline, beaten only by April 2020, the start of the COVID-19 related shutdowns, and October 2008 at the depth of the Great Recession. Well, thanks for listening to Washington Today, and now there's another way to stay informed about top Washington stories. You can subscribe to C-SPAN's evening newsletter, Word for Word. Find out more about how to subscribe at c-span.org/connect. Hope you have a good night and weekend.